No way. Kids will do well if they can, not if they want to. And so, you know, one of the struggles I'm having just now is that our littlest learners are being kicked out of class because of what's been called violent behaviour. And I'm really worried about it, that it's, you know, little 4- and 5-year-olds who are having temper tantrums, who haven't developed self-regulation skills, are being called violent. No, it's not. It's development, not violence. So the language we use is very, very powerful. Our little ones and our teenagers as well are on a journey to learn about self-regulation. Emotional as well is very important for us, of course, to learn about, understanding how to recognise, manage and cope with emotions. Are we actually teaching this? Are we modelling this? One of the things that we as advisors are supporting the ministry is looking at the well-being of staff in the school, not just the well-being of the students. Because we know that when teachers are healthy, they can bring that to their classrooms. But we also know the other end of it, and that is that there's stress contagion. Dr. Kim Shonert-Reichel out in BC has looked at numerous studies, and she knows that when teachers are burnt out, the cortisol, the stress measured in their students is higher. So we now know much more about the brain. We know that when those stress systems are turned on and not buffered by relationship, shut down your thinking brain. If your stress brain is firing, it takes up all the brain energy, and your thinking brain is not online. So we need to be looking after the well-being of our teachers as well. So I mentioned the Ministry of Education, great team, looking out and asking, what does it mean? What does it mean to have well-being to thousands of people across the province? And what they have identified is what's here. And I hope I'm not getting in trouble by sharing something. No, this is on the website. So, yeah. So, people talk about people being trustees, students, parents, caregivers, caretakers at school. Say that what's important in well-being is having a sense of self and spirit, having physical and emotional safety, hugely important, over and over and over again for many of our students, particularly those who are marginalised. A sense of belonging. This is something that's very dear to my heart, because many of the students I've worked with over the years have not felt that they belonged at school. You know, me as a shrink said, thank God for the goth movement. Finally, kids had a sense of connection. Meaningful learning experiences. So it's not just about feeling good, it's actually having meaningful learning experiences. Supportive relationship, as well as healthy minds and bodies. Well, you know, just for a plug for my friends here, People for Education, they've also got some pretty neat stuff that they have investigated and identified that all kids, so everybody take a picture of this and tweet it so that Annie can say, look how powerful we are, and she'll get more money. Everybody tweet this one. So, what do they need? Strong foundational skills that support perseverance, adaptability and self-awareness. I go all across the country and people are telling me kids are giving up and giving in more and more easily, younger and younger. Wow! We have to pay attention to that. What is that all about? And maybe in our question period, people can share some thoughts on that. Kids need the capacity to communicate, collaborate, and imagine solutions to complex problems. You can read these through. They are the heart and the essence, not just of what public education needs to be, but what healthy development needs to be. We need to shift from thinking about education just as covering certain material to education being an immunisation and a protection against mental health difficulties. Because, you know, I'm convinced that if we do help our young people with these essential skills, that they will be able to battle many of the challenges that life has to offer them. I'm very worried as a child psychiatrist, and I'll show you some of the statistics, that more and more kids are experiencing anxiety. Now, I don't know yet if they have anxiety disorder, but one of my big worries is they're having anxiety and they're so unused to having a distressing feeling that it's become pathologized. Rather than adults around saying, oh yeah man, I remember when I felt like that. Or didn't you tell me last week that Joey was having a similar kind of thing? So you normalize feelings of anxiety, but most importantly, you help kids develop strategies to cope with it, not IPRC them so that they don't have to write the exam. There are kids with anxiety disorder. Absolutely, I am in no way undermining that reality. But what's happening that we have so many of our kids who are experiencing anxiety and skipping school? One of the things I worry a lot about is this. I did a consultation recently on a little girl who was about 11 years old who was refusing to go to school. The tipping point was her Instagram account didn't get as many likes as her friend did. So she was too embarrassed to go to school. Well, do you know what? That is something we can absolutely do something about. We can help develop these skills in children. We know how to do it. But what we value is what we measure. And what we measure is what we value. So we need to be in the business of saying this is important enough for us to learn more about it. So we have an early years curriculum that's absolutely fantastic. I'm a little bit biased about it, mind you. And in this early years curriculum, we need to see these foundations go up, not just for K to 3, but onwards and upwards. My friend Jim Grieve, who was the ADM in the early years division, said, first we take kindergarten, then we take grade 1. Then we take grade 2. Why is that? Because these foundations are at the heart of education, a sense of belonging when you're connected to others and you're making a contribution to the world. Engagement, you're excited and interested about what you're learning. Engagement, a sense of well-being, as well as an ability to express. We have limited our kids' expression. We've limited that to what we count and measure. Children have 100 different languages, and we limit their expression so narrowly. So what about imagine a school where the focus is on the conditions for learning and the competencies that kids need to do well. So again, here's a plug. People for Education has done tons of research on this. But our government, the ministry, is now looking at transferable skills. And I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm not involved in that. But the critical thinking that kids are going to need to be developing, you know, that starts in kindergarten. That starts early. Innovation and creativity. If any of you haven't seen Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk from 2006 on creativity and how we're actually killing it in our schools, so important. Imagination. We are going to have challenges that only our adolescent brains are going to have the creativity to solve. If you want a solution to a sticky, wicked problem, ask a teenager. Why? Because they've got brilliant minds that haven't been inhibited by failure yet. It's great. Well, except when it's not. It's great. If you know what I mean. Right? So these are such important competencies, but here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. How can we balance How can we balance the development of these competencies and bring it into and through the curriculum that's being covered? So, there is being a refresh done on the curriculum. But I want you to listen really, really closely to Nancy's panel coming up and see how in the management and the stories that she's going to tell show us how these competencies can very naturally be what education is about. You know, Socrates or Plutarch or one of those wise old men back in the day said that education is more about lighting the fire than filling the pail. We need to get back to that. It's more about lighting the fire than filling the pail. But you know, I saw a TED Talk recently by Will Richardson, and it was very stark because he said, here are the conditions for powerful learning. Safe environment, personal investment, real-world application. Look at it, fun, passion, a real audience, teachers as mentors. These are powerful conditions for learning. They're amazing. When you think of a positive environment, interesting questions. You know, Winston Churchill, he was given a very bad time in school, and one of the things he said was the problem with examinations is they ask me questions, but not the ones that I know the answers to. Right? So what in fact people never say are powerful learning is sitting in rows, 45-minute blocks, one-size curriculum, you get the picture, right? Someone else's question, standardized assessment, no choice, no agency, lack of relevance. Now, I watched this a couple of times, and each time I watch it, I think of, oh my goodness, how are we in still this world? How can we imagine? How can we say, I want something different? Well, I must say, I'm so taken by the fact that this ministry is taking us in new directions. I actually originally called this talk To Boldly Go, where no man has gone before, or no woman. But you know, what you think affects how you feel, affects how you act. I recently heard, just the other night, about a little grade 1 boy who is having weekly spelling tests, who has to come home every night and practice spelling. Well, what he really wants to do is make this amazing robotics Lego, where he's got interconnections. The other day he was saying to his mum, you know, Mum, I think this is one we're going to have to video. This kid has amazing competencies. When he goes to Ottawa, he said to his mummy, I want to learn how to spell Parliament Hill. He's not interested in weekly spelling tests doing spam. No, spam was one of the words. Which, of course, now, because I have a degree in music, I have Monty Python's spam, 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 spam. Now, you all have it stuck in your brain too. Oh, no, oh, no. So, but what we think affects how we feel, affects how we act. And, you know, I'm very privileged to work with Dr. Carl James. And we're really looking at and thinking about equity. And you know, our mindset makes a huge, huge difference. A mindset, and that's the psychology of learning and achievement. And this wonderful Scottish site, the Centre for Confidence and Wellbeing, talks lots about it. But we have to think that people are made, not born. We have to think that children have massive competencies and capabilities. And you know, when you really think about those transferable skills, again, when you really think about them and say, if we focused our attention on these transferable skills, would we not find that those who are not as academically inclined are then free to bring what they're good at to the classroom? If we think about developing communication and collaboration and showing how kids can and will do that, are we not going to be more equal in our classrooms, rather than saying you're only at level 6 and you need to be at level 18 by the time we come out, so we say you have to be like everybody else, rather than saying, well, tell me, what do you know? Our Indigenous children very often fall, in terms of our standardised testing, fall behind. But we don't think culturally enough about what they are learning. We know that oral language counts, it matters hugely. But many of our Indigenous communities, they say, you know, you're given 2 ears and only 1 mouth for a reason. That what we're testing is how they mouth rather than what they've heard and what they understand. So we need to be thinking differently. Our expectations need to be altered, not lowered. And think that there are ways to light that fire, but they're different ways. So what we want is our kids to develop an academic mindset. That I belong in this academic community. My ability and competence grow with my effort. I can succeed at this. And this work has value for me. Well, you know what? When you have a sense of belonging, engagement, expression and well-being, bang, you get all of this. Okay, so what are some of the crucial messages that we need to be giving kids? Well, this is important. You can do it, and I won't give up on you. This is important. You can do it. I won't give up on you. So, you know, as we're reviewing assessment, we really have to be thinking about these crucial messages. We also need to be thinking about the power of failure. The power of failure. I'll be speaking next week at Quest, and Michael Unger, the resiliency researcher, is going to be the last keynote speaker, or last morning. And you know, Michael talks about too safe for their own good. That we're bubble wrapping our kids. That we're not allowing them to experience failure. Now, I don't want kids to experience failure and be devastated. I want kids to experience failure and to be caught. To be held in the metaphorical arms of people who care about their learning. We now know from the work that Joe Bowler talks about in mathematical mindsets that when you actually have made a mistake, your brain is differently wired for learning. There is a moment, a change in the chemistry of your brain that says, wow, I need to learn something here. So, messages with mistake. And instead, what we do is we tell kids, oh man, you're so smart. You are so smart. I was blown away when I read Carol Dweck's research on mindset that showed that kids who are told they're smart all the time give up more easily. That what we need to be saying to kids is, man, you've tried really hard here. We need to be acknowledging their effort, not their smarts. So the time when students are most susceptible to messages is when they're failing. And so the feedback that we give, the feedback and the feed forward, is so crucially important. But there was a study that really profoundly affected my thinking on this. And it was one where they, let me just see, it was one where they said, I'm giving you these comments. So there was 2 groups of students. One got, here are the corrections, I think you can do better. And the other had another post-it on it that said, I'm giving you these comments because I have very high expectations and I know that you can reach them. So what's that about? Well, what happened was the kids who got the, I know you can reach them, I have high expectations, they handed this work in. They wanted to do more. They had a growth mindset and they thrived. The other kids didn't do nearly as much. What is that? Now, does this mean that now we go about sticking little posters on? No, that's not the point. We're not into the post-it world. We're into authentic communication about caring. Authentic communication about caring, how kids do. So I talk about in an article that I wrote for the ministry about how much are we spending our time connecting with kids, actually having them feel felt by us. And that is a crucial role that teachers need to figure out. And I'll say the parallel process, principals and teachers need to figure out the relationship and how they can also feel felt. That you're important to me, what you do makes a difference. So how much are we connecting and how much are we correcting and redirecting?